Hello, everyone, and welcome to what I believe is the first online career guidance program organized for the members of the Ebura Aksebu Kwamankese district of NASPA. And I want to say a warm welcome to you all. I also believe we have other people from other districts joining us. Welcome to you as well, and thank you for making time to be here today. Today, we're going to be talking about how to write a CV or a resume, and I would like to just talk a little bit about the structure of this event. First of all, it starts with a 5 minute session where we have an opening prayer, and then we have a statement of purpose. And then once we upload this video, please watch the video to the end. And then I might also add some materials on the WhatsApp page in addition to the video so that you can also have those as well. I think they'll primarily be examples of good resumes, but keep your eyes on there as well as we go through the program tonight. And the other thing is, I want to spend about 30 minutes going through essentially the core of the materials, and then maybe we'll take about 20 to 25 minutes to talk about questions or to just go through your questions, because I think some of you might have questions, maybe many questions as we go through the materials, and I would love to give you a chance to ask so that I can do my best to provide an answer. And so just keep in mind, this is the first of 7 Fridays, 7 nights, which are Fridays at 8 p.m. GMT for this event. We're going to be touching a number of topics related to career growth and just careers in general. And so just I encourage you to make the time to join. I encourage you to be here. And feel free to interact and ask as many questions as you like. I want this to be an exchange rather than an actual, just lecture, right? So let's have a good time. Let's have more discussions, and we'll go from there. I also want to take the chance to recognize that most of you are teachers, and I want to acknowledge that and you know say thank you for all you do in teaching our children, in raising the next generation of African leaders. I think you guys are so important to our country, Ghana, and important in our lives. I remember growing up and how much I needed my teachers. And so, to those of you who are teachers, thank you for all you do. Those of you who are not teachers, thank you as well, because you also equally contribute to the economy. And I also want to say, congratulations in advance as you work to the end of your national service program. I think it's such an important part of our system in Ghana. Unfortunately, I didn't go through it, but I would have loved to, and maybe this is how I am now getting the chance to be a part of it as we go along. I also want to appreciate the organizers of this program, led by the president of this district's NASPA. So Solomon Yako, thank you very much for your leadership. I've been working with him very closely, and he's amazing. I mean, we were able to put this together in such a short time. It blew my mind. And so thank you, Solomon, and thank you to the other executives of this district, the the district of Ebura Asebu Kwamankese. I really want to say thank you, and for giving me the chance. I'm very honored to be here, and I'm honored that you've given me the chance to be able to interact with your members and to give back to other districts in central region. So thank you very much. One thing I also want to say is, I know we're in the midst of a global pandemic and everybody knows about COVID-19. So I hope you're staying safe. I hope you are washing your hands and using hand sanitizer, wearing your face mask. Please, COVID-19 is real and we must all be on guard. And if you have the time, please join us next week, because we'll be looking at COVID-19 and its impact on the career world. And so if you can make it, please join us. But I hope everyone is safe and staying healthy at this time. The other thing I wanted to say is I really learned a lot in putting together this material for today. It actually amazes me how I thought I just knew everything about resumes and CVs, but turns out I did not know everything. So I am also learning as you are, and so I think it's going to be a give and take. I want it to be very interactive, and so I'm looking forward to how this will go. Again, please watch the video and then watch out for the other materials on the WhatsApp page, and then we can go from there. So what I want to do now is talk a little bit about myself. Many of you may not know me, and this might be the first time you're seeing, me. My name is Doji Yakor, and I am an IT auditor by profession. I grew up in Ghana, and I went to Okrapiman Senior High School, and then I went to UCC after that. So I am an alum of UCC. But I only spent a year, and after that year, I left to study in the United States. And so that's how I landed in the US through a study abroad program and a scholarship with that as well. And keep in mind, there is one topic about studying abroad and scholarship. So don't forget that we have that and lined up as well. So after I got to the US, I studied accounting and management information systems. It took me 3 years to finish the work, but I took an extra year to do research, and so I graduated in 2016. And after I graduated, I went and worked for a professional services firm called Deloitte. It's one of the big four firms. And after that, I also worked for a firm called EY, which is another professional services firm. So this is how my career began in audit. But I've always had a passion for helping people. I've always had a passion for giving back, which is why I founded an NGO called Motivated and Patriotic Africans. And we are still in the early stages, but it's the NGO is my way of saying let's give back to the young people, let's give back to the youth, let's tell them why it's important that we build the next generation and raise the next generation of ethical servant leaders who are willing to be patriotic to Ghana and loyal to Africa and willing to find solutions to the problems that we face. And so this is one thing that I'm very passionate about, and I look forward to interacting with you some more in that regard. So the next thing I want to do is let's dive into the main topic for the day now. And now we're going to talk about a CV. And what is a CV and why is it important? CV stands for Curriculum Vitae, and it's funny, I didn't know the meaning of that Latin word or those two Latin words. And thanks to Solomon's post on the page, I found out that it actually meant course of life. And so it's true, when you go online and you search the meaning of curriculum vitae, Wikipedia pops up, and it means course of life. So it actually makes sense because you're trying to put on paper all your experiences which form the course of your life, right? And so that's a very important part of keeping record of all your experiences, all your educational background, and many other things. And we'll get into a bit of that later as well. So a CV is according to the I'm sorry, rather the Cambridge Dictionary. A CV is a short written description of your education, qualifications, previous jobs, and sometimes also your personal interests, which you send to an employer when you are trying to get a job. And so basically, what it's saying is it's the document you send to the employer because you're trying to apply for a job. You're trying to get a job, and you need to submit this to the employer. So the employer has an idea of who you are, what your experiences are, and many other things that we'll get into later. So it talks, you see in the definition, the key things it says are your education, your qualifications, your previous jobs, and sometimes your personal interests. So keep those things in mind. We'll talk a bit about it again later, but keep those in mind. In the US, curriculum vitae is mostly used when you are applying for academic teaching jobs, and so most of you are teachers. So curriculum vitae would apply to you. The CV would mostly apply to you, um, and resume is used for other jobs. The funny thing is, I always thought CV and resume were the same thing, but I found out that there are some differences. They are not entirely the same. And one of the differences is what I just said. That usually, and again, this is the US, but in the US, usually the CV is used for teaching or academic related jobs, while the resume is used for other jobs or application to other jobs. The other differences that I've learned is that the CV, um, and the resume have these three major differences. And these are the length, the purpose, and the layout, right? So these three criteria actually form the differences of the between the CV and the resume: the length, the purpose, and the layout. Um, so basically, according to the CEO of Link Humans, I beg your pardon, the CEO of Link Humans, a data insight and employer branding company. His name is Jorgen Sandberg. Basically, what he says is that a CV is intended to be a full record of your career history, but a resume is just a brief, targeted list of skills and achievements. I'll tell you that again. A CV is intended to be a full record of your career history, while a resume is a brief, targeted list of skills and achievements. So basically, the CV is a much broader, more detailed account of everything you've done in your career life. Now, while the resume is a very quick, short, brief, description of your skills and other achievements you've had, so that the employer gets an idea of who you are and what you're doing. Um, so basically, just to give you some additional context, you would customize your CV direct your I'm sorry your resume directly, because it's such a short piece of write up, and it's so straight to the point. It's very easy to edit it right away. But for the CV, it usually stays, you know, static. It usually stays static because it's so detailed that you don't normally go in there to do a lot of changes. It's very established. This is usually for people who are like veterans in an industry. So somebody who has worked for 10, 20, 15, or 30 years in a company or in an industry, they've built such a rapport and such a so many years of experience. They list out so many things. It's a long description, right? Um, and so when they want to edit their CV, most of the times they actually go in for the cover letter. And we'll talk about the cover letter in a while. But the cover letter is what holds the changes of your career on the CV. But the resume is edited directly. Now, from my personal experience, um, I understand that there is, some nowadays there are companies who are not necessarily requiring a cover letter. They are actually leaving it up to you to submit one or not, because there's so many applications and applicants that the companies are trying to get through the screening very quickly, because they're using your resume and your CV for screening, and they're screening so they can know which candidate do I call for an interview. That's the reason why they look at it. And I'll tell you a story in a bit, but most employers don't even spend a minute on your CV. They only look at it for maybe 30 seconds or so, and then they shift it aside and look for and go to the next person's CV, because they are in a hurry to just figure out and be very efficient to figure out who can we call in for an interview. So the next I want to say is, according to thebalancecareers.com, which is a careers um, blogging website, there are generally three types of cover letters: the application letter, the prospecting letter, and then the networking letter. And as the name suggests, the application letter is the cover letter you actually use to apply for the job. There are some companies or some organizations, like maybe universities and high schools, since most of you are teachers, who will say, give us an application letter so that we can see, we can see that you've applied officially for the position that you're going in for. The prospecting letter is a letter where you reach out to the company or the organization, for some kind of assistance, to just see what's out there, what opportunities are out there you're prospecting, right? So that's the purpose of that one. And then networking letter is a letter where you use to just introduce yourself and say, hey, I'm not applying for anything right now, but I'm just trying to network. I'm just trying to connect with you, just trying to build a relationship. And so here is my information, and you can keep it on the file if you want. It depends on how you structure it in the content. That's what gives you these three types of cover letters. But we are not talking about cover letter today, so I don't want to spend too much time on that. But just before I move on from that, just keep in mind the cover letter is an introduction of yourself in terms of your skills and experience. You don't need to put any personal information there, but you're trying to introduce yourself to your potential employer. You're trying to tell them that, hey, I'm giving you this additional information in addition to my CV, and I'm adding it to my CV. You submit the cover letter with your CV. You don't just submit it alone. So what I would say is the CV is more important than the cover letter, because the cover letter is only the addition to the CV, right? What the employer needs is to see your CV. That's the most important thing. Think about it this way: if you have a book and someone wants to give you just the cover of the book, or to give you the book's pages itself, I would go for the book's pages, because the pages I can actually read and I get the knowledge in my head. But if you give me only the cover, that's all I get. I only see the painting or the image on the cover, and there's nothing else that I get. So keep that in mind as we discuss this. But moving on, to CV, back to the CV. I know that, basically in Ghana, right? I think there's more emphasis on CVs. I think we use CVs a lot. I think that, not just in terminology, but sometimes even in the structure, in the length of our of our documentation of our career history. What I've seen in the US is there's more emphasis on resume. A lot of these companies and organizations in the US, they want a very short, succinct, concise, straight to the point, description of your skills and what you are willing to offer to the company. So they want it very quick. But I think in Ghana, and again with our connections to the UK and Europe, I think there's, again, they don't spend a lot of time on it, but I think there's the use of the CV, so it's more prevalent in Ghana, and that's what I wanted to say. So let's just go back again to, what organizations use the CV for. Oftentimes, the CV gives the employer their first impression about you. It gives them their first impression about you. It tells them the skills, the work experience, level of education, career history, everything, among others, that helps them to determine whether you'll be a good fit for the job or not. So I know I've talked about this a bit already, but keep in mind the why of the CV is that you're trying to help the employer understand that you are the best person for the job, and so you have to sell yourself and put your best foot forward. We'll talk about some other aspects of this, but just remember that basically you are selling yourself. It's like you're a salesman or woman for yourself, and so you need to make sure that the CV also reflects what the employer would expect from you. Always think about your audience in writing. Always think about your audience. And so that's very, very important. Um, and again, I just want to also acknowledge that I know there's so many employment challenges in Ghana. There's so many people, but the jobs are not that many. So this is the more reason why you have to really set yourself apart. Really find something that makes you different from everybody else. Whether it's more education, whether it is a certification, whether it is a leadership role you've held, whether it's a service role you've held, anything you've done that will really help the employer to see and say, oh, wow, this person is actually very different. That will help you. Um, and so one thing you can do is research the company. Just research, do your research, research, and also understand the vacant position. We have a job description which tells you what the job tasks entail, what you're going to do in that job, and we also have the job specification which tells you what you need as a qualification to do that job. And so don't forget that you need to understand both aspects of the job description and job specification, to help you truly understand how to frame your resume, understand and target the resume to that job, or target the CV to that job, or when you're writing your cover letter, so that when the employer picks it up, they feel like, oh, this person really thought about me. Now, some of us, we've not yet worked a lot. We don't yet have a lot of work experience. So you may not have a whole lot of work experience in things. But even your national service experience is still a good thing to sell, and to just, or any volunteering experience. This is what I always tell people: you don't have to get the job or number of jobs before you actually put it on your resume. Even when you get some kind of volunteering position, let's say you go to an NGO and they're asking you to help with serving some food, or maybe you go and clean up the homeless shelter, or you go and donate food or something, or you serve on their executive board. All these things are things that help set you apart. Companies are willing to hire the person who is not just sitting home and waiting for the job, but actually goes out to either start a business and create a job, or is doing something with their lives while they are waiting to get that job. They don't want someone who's idle, because the reason, and I'll give you a good way to look at it. If you are in a car that's already moving, you already have some speed and momentum. But if you are in a car that's stagnant, it's just there, then it takes more energy and more power from the engine to move the car. That's why we have the first gear, because the first gear is powerful enough to move the car. But when the car is already moving, the momentum is there, and you're already going at a good speed. So once you are picked up by the company or the school, they know that, oh, this person has already been teaching and already knows how to handle the job, so, or has already been doing something with their lives, so it's okay for them to get the job. So keep that in mind as we go along. Um, so I told you I had a very interesting story about the resume to tell you from my personal experience. When I was working for one of my big four firms, which is the audit firm, um, I was sitting in a room with one of the partners, and it's funny, he had a stack of CVs, right, or resumes in the US, right, and he was sitting at the desk, and he was just going through those CVs. And I tell you, he didn't even spend 30 minutes on those. It was very quick, and he would just look at some key things. He looked at the school, he looked at the program you studied at the university, he looked at like your work experience and some key words, and then if you didn't meet that, he would just push it aside and throw it away. But if you met some of the key things he was looking for, then he would set you aside for future review. So you can see that all these companies and organizations are not spending a lot of time. They are very fast. They are just glancing over your resume or your CV. They are just looking at it very quickly. So make it easy for them to look at it quickly. One page CVs are the big thing now, and they've been that for a number of years now. I use a one-page resume in almost all my job applications because it's just one page. When they take it, they see everything. Okay, they make their decision. So again, think about the audience. Very, very important. Let's talk about the key areas of a CV, and basically, I just want to share a bit about my knowledge of the key areas of a CV, and then what I'll do is after that I'll dive more into the specifics. But I want you to know that coming from Ghana to the US, I had no understanding or experience with resumes in America. So one thing that helped me was I was mentored by my brother, who's also in the US, and he helped me to put together the draft, the first actual draft, which what really helped was just the layout, right? The layout alone was very helpful, and I put together that draft, and then I went to my college's career center, and I asked them to help me review it. I worked with some of my professors, I worked with some of my friends, and they all helped me to review it, and that's how I got it to the level and to the state that I wanted. So let's run through these personal points first, and then after that we'll get into the actual specifics. So the first thing you need to think about is the layout of your resume. So make sure the layout, the way you've structured it in your Word document, that it's easy on the eye, it has a good font type, and the font size is legible, and that it flows logically, right? And then the other thing is the number of pages. So basically, we've already talked about this. Try and keep it to one page as much as possible. But if you have a lot of things to say, even though you've not yet worked a lot of jobs, and maybe some of you have worked a lot of jobs before you went to do your national service, that's fine. You can still write it, but keep the important things and think about the audience. The audience is your employer, that specific employer and their specific industry. So you need to keep that in mind. The employer in an accounting company or financial services company might have different needs from a company in manufacturing or in construction. So you always have to weigh the two and understand what you're dealing with. The third thing here is the importance of consistency. This one was such a big thing for me because my first resume, like I remember, like even my dashes were not the same. You know the dash, the length of the dash being the same everywhere. Like the theme, if you have italicized text, then it should be italicized for all those types of text. If you have bolded, then some parts should be always bolded. Just the whole consistency of your formatting in Microsoft Word should be on point. I think organizations are like, if you don't have the right formatting, then you are negligent. You are not organized. You couldn't even see that you didn't bolden some aspect that you always boldened before. And then it's like they doubt your writing skills. So keep in mind, consistency is important. I also believe in the importance of numbers. We live in a world of data, and a lot of people we are being drowned in data. Our smartphones are producing data, our apps are producing data. Data is about numbers, it's also about insight. So if you can tell your employer that, let's say you increased the participation of your students in class by 50%, that's a huge number. And so it really gives them an idea that, wow, if you can increase participation by such a number, and again, just an example, then maybe, yes, we should consider you for an interview. So don't be dishonest, don't lie about it, but estimate those numbers. Put your best foot forward and let them know that this is what I've done in terms of numbers. Fuse it into your CV under your responsibilities section of the jobs so that they really understand what you've achieved. I think I might be running out of time, but hopefully we'll make it through for 30 minutes. Okay, so the next thing is, okay, I've covered some of this already. Let's see what else I have. And if you need help, I already alluded to the fact that I needed help. My brother in the US helped me. The career center of my college helped me. College in the US helped me. I had friends who helped me. I had professors who helped me. So if you need help for someone to review it, to help you fine tune your resume or your CV, please don't hesitate. But you need to find the right people, the person who actually knows what they are doing, so that you do not have problems later on. Um, and I want us to now go into the actual specifics of the structure. So what I gave you were more like high level ideas and thoughts. Let's go now into the specifics of the structure of your resume. And I want you to know that I got most of this from these ideas from Jobberman Ghana, so their website, and from monster.com. So I have links that I can share with anyone if they want it, and you can ask Solomon and I can share with you. But there's so much, there's so many resources online, and I encourage everyone, if you want to find out anything about resumes that we've not yet covered, or we've covered, but even after this session you have questions on, go ahead and Google it online. If you have the internet access, go ahead and research, and you'll be surprised at how much you learn. All right, let's go deep. Let's go right into it. So, just a caveat, not everything I'm going to mention here is required, but you have to be creative to put those together based on how best you want to present to the employer and to your audience. So, the first thing is your full legal name and your contact information. That's the first thing that should come. So, your physical and email addresses, your phone number, and all of that. The second thing is a professional summary and personal statement. What is that? It's kind of a short blurb, or just a summary, very, few lines, maybe 2 or 3 or 4 lines, where you just say something about yourself. What are your core values? What are your goals in your career life? What I guess, what makes you think you're good for that job? So all these come into your personal statement. Then you need to talk about your education. That's the next section in your resume or your CV. So only keep the recent things. Don't go way back into your crèche, and no, no, no. If you've graduated from university, I would recommend focusing on the university, at most the university and your secondary school, which is your senior high school. Other than that, just keep it short, keep it simple. And then you want to talk about your skills. Skills are very important. Companies are looking for skills. And nowadays, it's funny, but they are putting more emphasis on the soft skills than the hard skills. The hard skills are the things you are taught in school. You go to school, they teach you how to teach, they teach you how to, lecture. If you're an IT person, they teach you about computers, and you learn computer programming, or you learn designing and all of that, website designs. Or if you're an accountant, you've learned accounting, you've learned IFRS, the standards and everything. But apart from the technical things, the organizations are saying, what about your character? What about your honesty? What about your values? What about, are you on time for things? Are you able to get along with your coworkers? Are you able to be kind to your neighbor? Are you hardworking? Will you make a sacrifice if you're asked of it? So all these soft skills are now becoming more important. So as you highlight your skills, make sure you put some in there as well. And then the next thing obviously is achievements. If you have very great achievements, awards, honors that you want to put in your CV, please put it in there. And for instance, I put in some of my awards from one of my firms, just to beef up my CV and make it look appealing. And then if you have any certifications, you should add that as well. A certification is a stamp of approval that comes from an independent organization that says, because of the education you've had, because of the examinations you've passed for that certification, and because of the experience, we are attesting to the fact that you can do the job. You know what it means to be a teacher. You know what it means to be an accountant. So that's why we have things like ACCA and all these other certifications. They are very powerful, and it's funny because nowadays even the certifications are bypassing education. So just keep in mind the importance of having a certification. And then talk about your work experience. That's the next thing. Highlight your work experience. Talk about mention the organization and then what you did, and then the period for which you did what the responsibilities you held for that position. It's all very important. Then the next thing is personal development. This is just talking about things you've done personally. It's not because of the school, it's not because of anything else, but maybe you went to a seminar, maybe you went to a webinar, like what we are doing right now, and you've engaged in this and you've learned so much. And so you're saying, oh, I was a member of the online career guidance from your district of NASPA. And so as a result, you've learned all these things. And so, put it in a way that looks very appealing as your own personal development. The other thing is leadership experience. If you've held any leadership experience significantly that you want to also show, create a section and then highlight that leadership experience, because you need to show them that you are also capable of being a leader and not just an employee. And then you want to also look at hobbies and interests. So basically, it's not that important, but if you want to talk about your hobbies and your interests, make sure you highlight the things that actually will how do I say this, will actually improve your sale of yourself. Will make you look better. Not Don't say things that will make you look like your hobby is watching Netflix, 24 hours a day, every day. Those things make people think, okay, this person is not, it's not work, it doesn't work hard. They just watch TV every day. But, make sure you say things like maybe reading books, if that's what you do, right? Be honest, but maybe reading books, maybe listening to audiobooks, maybe networking with people. Say things, but also, watching a movie every now and then, that's fine, but make sure you word it in a very good way. And then references. This is the last piece of the structural areas of the resume. So basically, for the references, some organizations are saying you don't have to provide it unless we request. So if that's the case for the job when you're applying, just tell them references are available upon request, right? But if they tell you provide a reference, then it's okay to create a section in your CV and just add your references. I would say it's always good to have a reference, at least two references, always ready just in case, so that you can always call on them whenever you're applying for a new position and you need them to speak on your behalf. Okay. All right. So the other thing is, again, a lot of the things I'm saying maybe will sound as if it's coming from the US perspective, because I've spent most of my career in the US. But I want you to understand some of these things are the way Ghana is going to end up one day, if we are not even there right now as we are speaking. And the other thing is always keep in mind the uniqueness of every country and every industry. If Ghana requires certain things I've not mentioned, then please do remember to require it, or to add it. If the industry you're applying to requires something that I've not mentioned, again, you have to be creative and put that together in your CV so that you can actually, again, speak to the audience. Always remember your audience. Okay, so the last I'm gonna do is you look on the page and I'm going to share some examples of resumes or CVs that I think are good. I do have references for what I put together as notes. If anybody wants some of the links, I think maybe we can work with Solomon and I can get those to you. Again, there's so many resources online, so feel free to go online and get these resources. I'm a big fan of YouTube, so so if you can watch even YouTube videos about CVs, you're welcome to any day, because they'll tell you so much and there's so much out there to learn. Um, I'll leave you with one quick tip. And that is, even though we'll cover networking a little bit later in our itinerary, I want you to know that what I have learned is that it is sometimes easier when you have someone who knows you and can vouch for you, and your skills within the company you're applying to, within the organization you're applying to, actually submitting the CV for you. If the person you know who can speak on your behalf and knows you very well and your skills takes the CV to the hiring manager and says, I'm working for this company, but I know this person and I can speak for them. I know they can do this work. Then obviously go ahead and let them help you, because it's all about relationships and people. And eventually, you want to make sure you build a good relationship. Um, Next week, we'll talk about COVID-19 and its impact in the world. Please, we are about to transition into our question time. So if you have any questions, leave them as text on the WhatsApp page, or you can also record the question as a voice memo and then post it there, and I can respond accordingly. Or also with the help of Solomon and the executives, we can respond. So thank you very much. It's been an honor to have the first edition of this online career guidance, and looking forward to the next Fridays where we'll be interacting. Thank you, and we'll talk to you soon.